Show on Fox Soul. We're talking about janky convictions. You like that, Obi? I just named it. How y'all feel about that? Okay, wrong.
Malicious prosecution. Start calling it malicious prosecution.
Malicious prosecution. I like that.
That's what it is. Malicious. That's actually the tort. Malicious prosecution.
Yeah, malicious prosecution. Okay, well, that's what we're talking about today. Malicious prosecutions, formerly known as wrongful convictions. So, Tim, you were telling us about this new lineup that they're doing in California. So tell us what was old and what's the new 2020 lineup when it comes to police lineups.
The old format was when you had a photographic six-pack and the detective, like I'm the lead detective on the case, and I go out and show it to witnesses and try to get the suspect or suspects identified. Well, there was a lot of, Brian would tell you, there was a lot of foolishness going on with these six-pack lineups. The detective will hold his finger on, say, photograph number 2, and Ken, you pick this out, and then, or you may have 6 photographs, and one is dark, and the other ones are light. Well, Ray Charles, if he could see, could figure out which one it is. It's a dark one. You see. Yep. So the thing is that what they did is just, I forget the Senate bill, but in 2020. They now have what you call a blind lineup. In other words, you a detective, Tammy. Okay, I'm give you a six-pack. I tell you to go out and show the six-pack to.
What is a six-pack? What is it?
Just a photographic six-pack.
6 photos.
Six photos. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You talk to police, talk to me. I ain't never been in the police.
Okay. I tell you to go out and show it to some witnesses or some victims, but you don't know who the players are. So that's the blind six-pack. But there's some caveats to it. It has to be recorded or videotaped, and the interview has to be, all the interviews have to be recorded and videotaped, and that takes away all the foolishness that goes on.
So that way the detective won't be able to point at a specific person.
There you go.
Or light the specific person.
Exactly. They light up. If they're looking at one person, they just kind of perk up, and that person realizes
supposedly.
Or you can take, for an example, what transpired in our case, where you had the detective that was involved, Detective Marcella Wynn, pointing to the photo. In other words, that she wanted her star witness to identify. During my evidentiary hearing there in Compton Court, doing testimony where their witness was called back to the stand at the evidentiary hearing to testify in respect to his identification, and also we had our private investigator to come in to testify how did he identify to her how he was able to identify my photo, and she said he tapped the photo 2 times, and that's the way the detective told him that's how he was able to identify.
Wow. There's something else that's changing in California. Governor Newsom has put into place jury selection. Judge Brenda, did you want to mention that? Talk about that?
Yes. Governor Newsom just signed a bill that was put forth by an African-American Congress legislator, Dr. Shirley Weber. And it changed the jury selection, the Batson-Wheeler process, to make it harder for prosecutors to kick African Americans off the jury for the reasons like we've had a negative experience. So the standard of proof is higher, and it has made some changes because there were often Blacks were kicked off the jury. Blacks.
I have never been able to get on. I have dreamt all my life of being on a jury. I have been voting since I was 18. Never been on a jury. I've never even gotten.
I'll tell you how to do it, Tammy. I will tell you how to do it.
I think they just look at me and be like, she can go.
When you start expressing yourself,
it's got to be fair
for justice.
She might actually decide the case on the evidence. We don't want.
Yeah. I look too thirsty.
Yeah, but folks, you got to understand. This is California. Okay, I'm doing cases nationwide. They don't have Gavin Newsom in Louisiana. They don't have Gavin Newsom in Mississippi.
Well, that's what I was about to ask, though, Attorney Dunn. What is the likelihood that the laws will change in other states?
You're going to have this adopted as a national problem. I mean, we may be progressive in California. It has to be seen as an American problem so that we're looking at it in terms of what it is, which is due process violations that are violating the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. This is a federal thing, and it's got to be looked at like a federal thing.
And you need a Justice Department, a federal Justice Department that is actually about justice.
Right.
Instead the charade that is now in Washington, D.C., where they're looking. We're talking about Hillary Clinton's emails, and people are talking about how much this current president has done for African Americans when you have all of these innocent African Americans sitting in custody. They're not, they don't have celebrities out fighting for them or doing anything or saying anything.
Attorney Person Lynn, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like the system, this whole system is created. The founding document is a Declaration of Independence. And in that document, in the first line of the second paragraph, where they said all people were created equal while holding our ancestors as slaves, permanently relegated us to subhuman status in this country. And so whatever reform or whatever law gets put in place, it's still going to be on the premise that we are less than human, and we're always going to be treated that way. So unless you root it out, yeah, a reform, a new law will cut the grass, but all that's going to do is give them time to figure out how to work their way around it. And then that weed is going to start growing again, and we're going to start seeing it again. We saw it in LA in the 60s after the uprising. We had a lot of reforms, Cal State Dominguez, MLK Hospital. By the 90s, we were right back to it, where we had another uprising, where we had a lot of reforms and federal consent decrees. And now we're right back in it because it's all built on our inferiority. So that's why I have no faith in the government. I'm an abolitionist. The whole thing needs to be torn down. That is the only way we can expect to have some justice, because as long as the date on that document is July 4th, 1776, the status we had at that point is the status we maintain in this nation. And I agree, we have, and the Constitution says it as well. And we can honestly say we have about 3/5 of the rights of the actual Americans in this country. And so until that is abolished, and I know I'm talking big talk and something that would likely never happen, we either have to do that because we're trying to have the enslaved and the enslavers live harmoniously together. It's never happened. So we either have to abolish it and rebuild it with us in mind as human beings, or we have to exodus this nation and let them just figure it out without us.
Well, first of all, let me say this. In 2020, anything is likely to happen. That's for sure. However, I do want to point this back to Black people. Could the reason why we get the system to do the right thing and then it goes back to what it was, or just reforms in a way that's culpable for them to continue to do what they once did, could that be because of our own apathy to hold our politicians accountable, our own apathy to vote? Could it be our fault?
Yes. Well, let me say this. Let me say this. What we have not, none of us here have experienced reform. What we have seen is some policy changes. Going back to Breonna Taylor, they in Louisville, Kentucky, they gave her gave the family, I think it's $12 million. They call it 9 points of reform. They weren't reform. Those were policy changes. I read them. And they were policy changes. Reform looks totally different. Reform takes anywhere from 10 to 15 years to put in place. You gotta, the whole criminal justice system is broken. It's just broken. And it needs exactly as it was intended.
It's not broken. It's working.
Incremental change.
It's broken. It's broken. Anytime you have wrongful conviction, it's broken. Anytime you have folks pleading guilty to crimes that they didn't commit, it's broken.
But what we need to do, and certainly we need reform, we need change. We need
we don't know what reform looks
like.
We need diligence. I can tell you what it looks like.
We need more African American judges on the bench, and not just African American. We need judges who are courageous as well on the bench.
Right. That's what we really need. That second thing you said,
what we really need right now is to take a quick break and come right back.